Great, we're live. So early on, before we left for the break, we managed to got everything green, at least the first scenario. I'm gonna pause for a moment and just commit everything. Do I need to commit everything? Yes, I need to commit everything. Yes, at all. And we're gonna commit and say, hey, all green. One scenario. So whenever it's green, we can stop for a second and do some refactoring, right? One thing that you may have noticed is that, first of all, in the show view for the article, I'm hard coding these values here. We don't want to do that because if we get to view a different articles, we got to every time we visit this page, we're always going to see these values here, even for a different article, right? And I can potentially sort of like replicate this test just to make sure that we are, getting the right results. And saying when I fill in too much magic, trying to wrap my head around Rails magic, then I should be on the too much magic page, right? And then I should see yeah, then I should see this. Too much magic, and I should see that one as well, right? So we're just going to write these tests to make sure that whenever we visit a different articles page, we can do that. This should normally be in a separate test, but just for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to copy and paste it in the same scenario. It should really be part of a different scenario in this context, okay? And then I need to make sure that I can do this. So I'll have to visit when. Okay, let's make that another scenario. Creating another article, same. So it's the same scenario. When I fill in title with that and I click the create button, then I should be on that page and I should see that, and I should see that, right? So these two scenarios should pass all the same. But as we'll see now, they won't. Let's comment this little guy for now. And run Cucumber. So the first one goes all green, but the second one doesn't, right? Because we have hard-coded values. In order for us to display the correct value here, right? If we think back to the MVC graph that we had earlier on, what we need to do here is that we need to, in the controller, fetch the article that we want to display, right? Send that article to the view to build the page using the data that is coming from the database, and then return that back to the user, okay? And so to do that, in our show action, because that's the action that is responsible for dealing with that path, we want to first get an article. And to do that, we will call on that. And because this path here looks like this, it's a get to articles, and it takes an ID. we are going to get the ID as part of the params object. So we can extract params ID here. Okay, so we have this article here. We can then use that. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to go ahead and copy the same markup that I had previously here and use that to show my articles, right? I just got to make sure now that, so let's put this one in an H2. Maybe, come on. Okay. Copy and pasting wastes so much time, as you can see. So I'm going to type this article. We want the title, right? I forgot something. Damn it, I can't type today. What's going on? Right, so it has to be like that. And then we're going to have a paragraph tag that is going to receive our article content, like so. And of course, we don't want to forget to close this tag here. Now, if you run Cucumber, we will see that both tests are now passing. Yeah, good stuff. Now, so I can commit this and say add all, refactor, show view to display dynamic values. Right. Now that we got that out of the way, let's have a look at the controller for a moment. Okay, so at this point in time, we are going through so many steps just to create this article, right? There is another method on Active Record that allows you to create resources, okay? And that method is called create, right? So I can call on the model, I can call the create method and pass in a hash that contains the values that we need to create this article. And if you remember, we did that in the basic steps. In the basic step here, it's true that we are doing it with FactoryBot, but before we use FactoryBot, I had something that looked like this. You remember? Article create, and then I would give it the article hash, right? So you can use the create method on the model and give it a hash to create the same object, right? This is shorter and it's much more concise. So I want to change this right here. What create does is that it will try to create a new instance of this class, set the values of all the fields that are part of this hash that we give it, okay? Then it will save it right away, okay? So what we're gonna do is the following. We will, instead of calling new here, we will say create. Then we will say params. Well, it's obvious that we want to get the articles hash because we know already that we have an article hash from the params object that we can get and pass that to this method to create the article, right? So if that works, we can comment this out. And what we're gonna do now is do the following. So I'm gonna comment out these three extra lines. And I also need to remove this guy. And if we run, this guy's complaining about that. If we run Cucumber again, let's just run one of the features for now. Aha, we get a different error. Right. What does it tell us? Active model forbidden attributes errors. Okay. And this is in action controller, app controller, article controller line 7 here. Right. Now, this is something that I'm going to talk about this afternoon, but essentially what Rails is trying to do here is protect you by preventing people from submitting forms with unauthorized field. Okay, because there are always malicious people out there. You create your nice application and they always want to hack it by submitting some malicious code through your forms, or even on a payment form, for instance. You can imagine someone going there and changing the fields on your form to sort of like pass in some of the values that they want, right? We want to have Rails provide you a mechanism to sort of like protect against this sort of attacks. And we will talk a lot more about this afternoon when I do my talk on routing and params. But what we need to do here is essentially sanitize the parameters that we are receiving from this params object. By sanitizing, we are simply saying of all the items or all the fields that you're going to receive from the form, I only want you to accept the following fields and nothing else. Okay. And so the way we're going to do that, I'm going to create a private method in the same controller, and I'm going to call this articles params. Actually, it is article params. And what I'm going to do is say params dot permit. No, that's not it. Params articles dot permit title. And right. And instead of calling params article here, I'm going to call params. Now I'm going to call article params. So, right. Let's give this a shot. And see. Yay. Success. Okay. Be back to business. We can now create this article. Let's see if the other one is still passing. Great. Everything is still green. Okay. So you can see how we went from it was this, right? This to this single line here. Okay. Much cleaner. Cool. We can get rid of this code. And we're left with this. Let's run that. Good. Any questions on what we just covered now?
No, the audio was a bit jumping. So especially when you were explaining why it was protecting us and sanitizing. So I don't know what you say exactly.
I will cover that. I will cover that in my talk in this afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, because I completely, like for a few seconds I didn't hear. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
That will be covered this afternoon. Okay. Right. So that's cleaned up now. If we run the entire feature, do we get everything passing now? Okay, we have another scenario that's commented out at this stage. So I'm gonna get status, and we will say so we want app controllers at, let's say, refactor create method. Right. Now let's solve this final problem. If we run Cucumber now, we need to be able to do some error handling as well, right? If for some reason we can't create the articles, we need to be able to respond with an error message, right? Now, let's run this. We can see that that one is still failing. If we run just the scenario, when I fill in content with that text, and I click create article, then I should see title can be blank. The action index could not be found for action controller. Why is it trying to go to the index action? So we created the field, we filled in the content, and then we clicked on create. Why is it trying to go to index? Right. Let's see. So I'm going to put up a binding prior in the create method, because what we expect to see happening here is for this to trigger the create action, right? So I'm going to drop a pry here, run this test again. Right. And let's see what happens. Okay, it does stop in the create, right? So we were able to submit the form. We got to the right action. Okay. But then something wrong happened here. We tried to create this guy. I do next. Get there. Do we have an article? No. Okay, so we have an article object, but this is nil. We don't have an ID with me, which means this wasn't saved, right? But we still want to redirect to the article. So if I do redirect to article here, what will happen is that it fails to do so, but it redirects me to a different page. Oh no, better yet, because we don't have an ID here, when we print article, we don't have an ID, right? And remember that the redirect to method will sort of like generate a path that looks like this, articles. And then it's going to pass in the ID of this article here. But because the ID is nil, it tries to redirect to this path. That's why we were getting the error that we couldn't find the index action, right? But this is not the behavior that we expect to see, right? If something wrong happens while we try to create the articles, we want to handle that differently, right? So we don't want to, at the moment, what we're doing here is that we're assuming that this is going to run just fine, but it doesn't, okay? So instead, what we need to do here is if we do articles.errors, you will see that we have some errors on this object. And in order to fix this, I'm going to break this into two steps. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the new method, because new can also get these params that we're passing here. And I'm going to do a check to say if you are able to save this article, right? Then I want you to respond with this. Okay. Right. And I want you to respond with that. All right, cool. Let's do that. Like so. And then if it fails, what do we need to do? If it fails, we want to go back to new. We want to bring it back to the form that we had initially. Okay. So with this now in place, if I run Cucumber again, right? Cannot find argument. Right. This is because I am using a normal variable here when I should be using an instance variable. Okay, cool. What's happening here is that, remember that in order for us to, when we render the new form, what's happening here is that we expect to have this article object here, right? But what was happening is that I was creating this article as a normal variable, which means it was only available to this method here. But in order for a variable to be available to the view, right, you need to create an instance variable. So you need to put the @ sign here. The moment you do this, you can access it from the view that gets rendered right after this action is executed. Okay. So with this now, we can run this test. Right. This time around, we were able to proceed with the form submission, but we don't see this message saying that the title can't be blank. Okay. If we put on a show me page, oh, come on. Okay. All right, let's see what page we're actually seeing there. Okay, so we're back on that, but we don't see any of the error messages, right? So we need to then come and display some message. Just in the interest of time saving, I'm going to copy some code here. And within the form, where is my form? Here is my form. I'm going to do that. So article error count. Actually, I can get rid of this and just display the error messages for every article in. We get the full message and then we display the full message. Okay, cool. That's good enough. I can also get rid of this. Right, so what this is doing here is that if we have some errors on our articles object, if you remember what I did here, when we tried to save this, we were able to get the errors from this object, right? And then it prints this content here. Now from this content, you can call on the full message method, which will convert all of this, all these error messages into readable text messages. Okay. And with this in place, it should all get us to a green state. Good. And it does. We can now see that it displays this. But funny enough, it says that the content can be blank as well. Why? Why is that? Huh. That's weird. Let's look at this. So this test should really have, and I should not see content because we submitted the content. Let's run that. Let's quickly implement this guy. Basic steps. Expect the page. Not the to not or not to have. Not to have content. Okay. We shouldn't see that because we are submitting the content there, but for some reason it isn't. Yeah, and I should not see content can be blank, but it is there. Why is it there? Huh. Okay, let's have a look in our controller and see what's happening here. Okay. So try run this. What do we have in article? Huh. Oh, does anyone see what I did wrong here? Hmm?
It's not title.
It's not? Like, we ran this instruction, right, to create an article, but for some reason the type, okay, the params that we're getting is correct. We do have an empty title, but we have a content, right? But when we created this article, it didn't set the, like if I print out article, like it didn't set the content even though we have a content here. Do you guys see what mistake I made here? Focus on line 7.
You didn't save basically with .new, no?
Nope. Focus on this line. I'm doing something wrong here.
Is it the article param that is an instant variable?
What is it supposed to be?
Constant variable?
So when we do article params, there's nothing in it. And that's what I'm for some reason using to set this one instead of using article params. Right? I made a typo here. I added an @ sign where I shouldn't have. Okay. So now if we continue, we kill this and run that again, it should pass. And yes, it sure does, right? There we have it. So I know in the instructions that we gave you, it was mentioned somewhere that you could sort of like reference like have a look at the Rails guide in the getting started section, and you would probably see the implementation for this application, right? And they have the implementation code for that. The only difference with that page is that it's not test driven, right? So you just get explanation about what's going on, why is this page not running, why this controller doesn't exist, and so on and so forth. But you don't have the test driven approach to writing this problem. Okay, so let me see if I can find that. Essentially, you were supposed to use that to sort of like guide yourself in figuring out. Let's see if we can open this. Figure out what to do next based on the errors that you were receiving in your console. An example of that, for instance, whenever you see, you remember we saw this error message at some point, right? Uninitialized constant articles controller, because we don't have a controller. And the next thing they do is generate the controller for that, right? And then after that, it complains that we don't have a new action in the articles controller. We generate that. Then it complains that we don't have a template. These are all the same errors that we were seeing as we were going through my implementation this morning, if you remember, right? And to all these errors, they had lengthy explanation as to why you're getting those errors, right? And sort of like solutions to how to do them. So in your new view, for instance, you could pretty much copy this snippet and put that to generate your form. And you would have something pretty much like this. I use a different helper, but it sort of like does the same thing at the end of the day. Okay. And if you carry on, you will get to, creating the routes, seeing what actions, what's missing, and like just carry on implementing the solution to this problem. Okay. Now, one thing that's going to be very important moving forward is going to be your ability to, first of all, find the proper documentation, read that documentation, and extract the information that you need in order for you to solve the problem that you're facing. This is going to be a very critical skills for you guys to have from now on. Okay. So in addition to searching for stuff on the internet and so on, like finding documentation and reading documentation is going to be a very critical thing for you guys to do. And this is one of the things we wanted to test yesterday with this assignment as well. It was the first one. You all sort of fail at that, which is okay. It's fine. Now you know better, and hopefully you're gonna keep pushing on that direction moving forward. Yeah. How did you find this implementation? I mean, the whole process, my flow. Any comments on that?
I think you have good flow, a nice flow.
Yeah, and I want you guys to practice that flow. That's the same flow that we've been teaching you guys ever since we started. Ever since we started with the AUT cycle, we always want you guys to follow the process, read the error messages, only solve what the error message is telling you, right? One problem at a time, and you will get to the solution. If you try to solve everything at one go, you get confused and then you skip a lot of things in the process, right? Focus on fixing one problem at the time. Let the error message guide your implementation, and you will get to the solution. Provided you write good feature steps, right? and the whole of Gothenburg just dropped out.
The
Interesting.
internet.
Right. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Well, I would like to, because I got stuck at the step definition, and I'm wondering, is there like somewhere you can actually practice step definitions? You just somewhere, so I just get it real, like.
You mean defining
No
the
more
step
about it.
definitions?
Yes, yes.
Hold on a second. There was a page that I used to share with students. Right, Capybara. Cheat rags. This is the cheat sheet I wanted to share with you guys. On how to basically do testing with Capybara. Okay, so whenever you are visiting a page, you use the visit keyword and you pass in a path. Okay, clicking on links or buttons, click link and you pass the name of the button. Remember that the names of these buttons or links are case sensitive. Okay, so if you say about, make sure that you have a button named like this on your page. Okay. Text input and text areas, you fill in some field, you provide the field name with the content, right? Select boxes. If you have a select input on your page, you can use a select keyword to select a specific value from that select input. Same for radio button, checkboxes, attaching files, go back, going forward. And then you have your matches, expecting the page to have specific text, right? Expecting the page to have no text, right? You can use no text or you can use no content. So what I wrote here, I could actually, where is that? It's kind of weird to have it that way, right? To have no content. It makes more sense to say not to have that content, right? I mean, if we, let's see, if I go back to this, like this first line here reads better than this one, right? But they pretty much do the same thing. Right? So it does the same thing for us. Okay. So the good thing about this is like you can click on these and see various. So when you click on this, you'll see the negation of that. So here you can add extra stuff, you know, to say just the text, or you make sure that this text only appears once, for instance. Okay. When it comes to selectors, you can make sure that it has a specific selectors, and the selector thing will make use of CSS selectors to basically select items on the page. Okay, so you can check if we have a form selectors with a sign up class, right, and an alert class as a children of this, right? If you have that, then you found the item that you're looking for on the page. Page to have title, so on. You can basically navigate through this whenever you're looking for things to test. Okay. So I'm going to share this with you. And probably take one more question before we head out for lunch, unless there are no questions. Right. Cool then. I'll see you later this afternoon for some more Rails.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy lunch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rahul.
Bye.